Good morning, everybody. Warm welcome to this third edition of the workshop on semantic interoperability cross-border. And this year, we're lucky because this workshop is happening together with another workshop on isolation to coordination in collaboration with the NOBAREG team. My name is Claudio Baldassarre on behalf of SEMIC. Again, I welcome you to this workshop. Few technical things. They are gathering more chairs for people not to be standing and be comfortable when listening to the workshop. Also, this workshop is streamed online. Which means you can interact whether you are here with us in the room or you are following from your desk. You can interact with us and ask questions on the presentations by scanning this QR code and put in your questions. I'll leave it on the screen for a couple of more seconds. So this is a workshop. So what we are actually workshopping here. As I said, this is a third edition on cross-border interoperability, which is a topic which is close to my heart. This is the other slides. Okay, I will do it without slides. Cross-border interoperability makes sense when the maturity of digitalization of all the countries in the Union is somehow even. You wouldn't imagine that you can be cross-border interoperable with someone who is less mature than you. And this means we have to find a way to level this field. And one way we can use is a metaphor that came up, and it's apparently a good metaphor, is a transplantation of digitalization experience, which means a way when countries are exchanging digitalization experience. There is a donor country, the receiving country. Now, the donor country you can imagine as a country who has been through a journey. That had some preconditions. They had found reasons why this wasn't sustainable enough. They had a strategic outlook, so looking for output. And then they had to create the surrounding conditions so that the solution of digitalization would be a success. Now, a country who has gone through this journey and has succeeded, it's a good evidence for another country to actually align to the same conditions so that they would, at the very least, create the same political will, the same legal framework, the same budgetary commitment, the same readiness in terms of technology, and obviously they had to have the same strategic outlook, the same objective. And if they manage to do so, that digitalization experience now can be imported, and so that country, the receiving country, can accelerate into their journey. And altogether, this effect will lift up the countries that are less mature in digitalization in Europe, and so create the level of balance in which then cross-border interoperability can happen. Now, this year, this workshop is meant to bring you examples of countries who have succeeded, and the speakers who will be here on stage will tell of that journey and will tell to their best intent what were the preconditions. And the idea is that who is listening in the audience would understand that those preconditions are the actual condition, the current status, so that when they go back to their home country, they can say, oh, look, I've heard that presentation, and I think we are in the same status now, or we have the same strategic outlook. So probably we have to adjust our legal framework, sensitize our political class, And then we can take that experience and import it. These examples are already happening in Europe. We have here today Ukraine, who has reached their maturity with the Diia platform in collaboration with Ukraine, and now they are exporting it to North Macedonia. And in any case, there is lots of talks among the countries. So we have a lineup of speakers. We have Marta, which is our first speaker, and she will give us a landscape of explanation of what is the landscape of interoperability in Europe. And I would like to invite her on stage. So she will take us through the first session. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Take a moment, look at the person next to you. Now imagine this. What if we achieved truly seamless services, governmental services, all across Europe, automatically, zero friction? Think about a journey, say, from Lithuania to Italy, where your data, your credentials flow, when you, as a citizen, can do business, can travel without any frictions. A vision of an interoperable Europe is really powerful. It is not an option. It is non-negotiable to really create a competitive European digital single market. Interoperability is a tangible mandate of the Interoperable Europe Act. We are not just facilitating a data exchange. We are also building a common architecture structure for the Europe. We are also designing the common governance structures, and we must think about reusable components. The goal? A unified Europe. A Europe where digital systems become invisible for its citizens. But let's start from the obvious. What are the outcomes which are going to define our future? We are talking about the unified system offering proactive automated services, regardless of which member state jurisdiction you are in. We are talking about the unified European single market, when business may interact with each other, avoiding the complexity of 27 independent jurisdictions. We are also talking about establishing a common digital architecture and governance. Only then we will overcome a critical, absolutely critical lack of common understanding, and we will be able to strengthen something very crucial today, our digital sovereignty. Today, we move past theoretical. I speak here on behalf of Invest Consortium. It is a EU-funded consortium of 7 countries. My fellow colleague Rita will tell you a little bit more about it. But the main aim of Invest was to prepare a strategy for implementation, advisory strategy for implementation of the Interoperable Europe Act. And we have grounded our proposal into the extensive research. We have run consultations, 67 interviews with more than 70 experts from 25 member states. The people we spoke with were government officials, local government officials. They were from also representatives, also from the GovTech community, from the business, they were technical experts, and so on. Before we dive into the data, which is coming out of this research, I want to share a scale of a challenge. The evidence shows clearly that technical problems are solvable. There are another ones on which we really must concentrate our efforts on. They are about structural, organizational, and strategic approaches. But I want to empower you. It's morning, it's the start of this conference. Think what you are good in and listen what others are good in. Find your interoperability twin, the member state that already found a solution to some problem you may be facing. Trust us, from the research we have done, the solution already exists. It's a matter of really exchanging the ideas between each other. Before I will tell a little more about the persisting problems which were identified in the interviews, let me kind of sum up everything. The experts agreed, unfortunately, interoperability in Europe, despite a lot of efforts for many years now, it's still considered to be behind and slow. We must accelerate implementation to remain competitive as a continent. We are not living in the easy times. We really must do it. Why interoperability is slow? The problems aren't technical defects. They are, as I said before, organizational, architectural, and governance failures. They are often rooted in a thinking which I would like here to straightforward call a public servant mindset. This mindset is characterized, unfortunately, by aversion to risk. And it's understandable, yes, because if you do nothing, if you don't take risks, you are not risking of being fired. But the fear of failure is clearly killing the experimentation. And it also kind of stifles the complexity of the projects. Also, the experts pointed to this, that a lot of public servants are still treating interoperability as yet another task to be finished, or rather avoid, rather than seeing it in a positive way, as a solution to in future, the solution to reduce their workload over time. This really creates a barrier to innovation. I wanted here to show you few quotes. These are the quotes from the documents which were submitted to the digital architecture board of my country. I come from the Republic of Poland. And in our case, if you apply for the grant for some digital project for the public administration, you have to get the permission from the board. So people are explaining why this project needs to be done. So please, see it. The first example. The project is vital for our ministry. If we will not receive these funds, we'll be not able to solve an important problem for the state. Do you see it? The person is clearly focusing on receiving funding and not on some kind of a strategic thinking, strategic alignment. I'm sure many of you have seen it in your countries as well. Or another one. The aim of the project XYZ is to purchase a hardware. Well, we must agree the person is really mixing something, yes? Mixing the digital transformation with simply obtaining the, you know, computer's hardware, yes? Sorry. And then few ones even stronger, okay? First, we need to build the system, and then we will connect it to others. You see it, yes? This is a clear architecture failure, yes? Firstly, I construct something in a silo, and then in the future, I'm gonna think how to connect it. It's not interoperability by design. And then my favorite one, absolutely favorite, yes? Yeah. As soon as we sign the grant agreement, we're gonna think about the maintenance plan. Yeah, so give us the money, and if it's gonna fail, we don't care. It exposed total lack of long-term operational thinking. I think the statement, maybe not in this wording, which I quoted here, are kind of familiar to you. They confirm, in my opinion, our challenge. The problem is really systematic. The invest strategy, as I said before, is grounded in an extensive consultations. So let us examine what exactly we need to focus our actions on. The experts pointed that the past shows a critical absence of a unified strategic outlook. These actions must focus on alignment. We must define a clear, concrete roadmap. You know, the abstract goals on the level of abstraction are just useless without this roadmap. We must somehow establish an agreement for a transversal governance, because there is a lot of activities across Europe, but people are working in silos. And this complexity, reflecting the Conway law, is a structural barrier which we're not gonna solve with the help of legal acts. We need to talk with each other, we need to collaborate. We also must ensure a political commitment, because there is a description between the cycles. One is this short-term cycle of a political will, and another one is this longer-term cycle of the implementation of digital projects. The people we have interviewed told also that sometimes efforts failed due to so-called funding traps. I think I can postulate here that we really need to think about money, but we need to think about money from a little bit more longer perspective. Let's think about something like public value management. Let's think about how to establish long-term operating funding models. Remember, interoperability is a service, not a temporary project. As per the experts' input, there are two elements which are absolutely essential for the success. The first of them is a trust. A major risk for interoperability is so-called big brother concern, that, you know, some kind of a breach will basically erode institutional trust. Trust requires transparency, security framework, and reliability. We have to work towards consciously establishing the trust as really a building block, which is a basic layer of the European society. And I think the next one is the favorite topic for everyone here, since we are at the Semantic conference called SEMIC. It's a semantic interoperability. The efforts are being done, but experts have pointed to this, that this is the most challenging and crucial layer. We must resolve these semantic challenges. We really must put effort there as a priority. We must ensure that the car in Finland for the system means the same what the car in Europe. We must concentrate on establishing these common vocabularies. But I have a good news for everyone here. For every problem which I have pointed, and probably you also encounter, there already exists a solution. There already exists an institution, a member state, a local authority which have faced the problem and which have tested and proven how to go ahead. Here are just a few examples, okay? For example, Portugal. They enacted a law mandating compliance. Spain integrated the digital dimension into core public administration law already 2 decades ago. These people have really experienced how to do it. Thinking about how to measure the success. For example, Denmark has a lot of experience here. They quantify time saved for citizens and track citizens' satisfaction. Estonia and Finland, they found fantastic use case to work together about the prescription exchanges. It shows us that if we target this really existing need, already existing need, it moves just faster for everyone. Open source, how to treat open source as an asset. Again, Nordics and Baltics, they have tremendous amount of experience about the same subject. How to make open source software, how to prepare the data models and how to reuse them. And again, I'm proud to say here about Poland and our state information architecture, which links the mandatory compliance with the budget, yes? This is really bringing the shift to the thinking. Simply public servants cannot cannot think only about the money. Interoperability is a one-way road towards deeper integration. If we execute Interoperable Europe Act with political courage and practical collaboration, Europe will become more competitive, more secure, and much more easy to navigate. This is, I think, what makes this effort really valuable. But please remember, this doesn't happen in Brussels. It has to happen on national and local levels. But the path has been walked. It's my final challenge to you. The member states must look for most advanced solutions already operating in Europe. Simultaneously, you must also promote your own successful solutions and expertise. Don't be scared of it. Share it with others. Look at these pioneers. As I said before, Poland, IT state architecture for linking mandatory compliance directly to budgetary support. Italy, national data platform for building GDPR compliant P2P architecture, centralizing governance while decentralizing data and integrating the once only technical system framework. Again, Estonia and Ukraine. Think how successfully they managed to export digitalization platform, which now exists as a Diia, and really help Ukraine to propel public services in such a horrible time, in a time of war. Think about the Belgium. Belgium is such a fragmented country. Think about how they successfully built this regional model and how they were able to successfully bring or develop the semantic standards and were able to coordinate them via collaboration and not control. Fear again about Finland and about their cost analysis. For Finland managed to show that the costs of not acting is much bigger than the costs of acting. So it's really worth. The path forward is really two-way. Learn from the journey of the really like people or organizations who have found its way through the certain challenges. In parallel, please do assess your own strengths. Promote them. Share with others what you are good at. By sharing this knowledge, this technical and governance expertise, we can finally build the infrastructure and fulfill really the promise of the European Union and its core values, seamless, borderless digital space. Thank you very much on behalf of Invest Consortium. If we're gonna progress with our approach now to the EDIC, if someone would like to take the discussion upon, I would like to invite you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marta, stay on stage in case one of the audience has questions. So I invite you to reflect on what Marta has presented in the first part and the second part, where she introduced a little bit the challenges, but also the opportunities when countries talk to each other and they want to learn from each other. Is anybody from the audience feeling as a comment on a remark? So maybe then, if from the technical people can put up the slides on the speakers for this session, I will have a question for Marta. So between the initial reflection on what the public servant may think the projects are, and the second part, how do you think is that influential? So should we stay more positive and think that the countries will, in fact, take up the collaboration, or that the individual kind of twisted mindset, it's a real threat?
No, I think the countries will take the collaboration, and that's why we have Interoperable Europe Act, which is designing the way to govern this collaboration. The only problem is that to which level we will achieve the success. I mean, if we're really gonna put the heart into it, or if this is gonna be something which is gonna just be kind of staying on a paper and really like, no one is gonna see it as anything beneficial.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marta. Marta was also feeling not so well and still on the stage and give us some wisdom. Yes, give it up for Marta. I want to invite now our next speakers from Italy, from the Welfare Institute, Andrea Cigliano, and accompanied by Claudia Pollina. They will present to us how cross-border interoperability for them has been a challenge that they solve with the digital platform, where the border were a subnational level. Now, cross-border interoperability, obviously, it's jurisdictional, so you have it almost a fractal. You have it at national level, but also subnational levels. And today, Andrea and Claudia will tell us how Italy has succeeded in having cross-border interoperability nationally.
Okay. I will start. Just giving a little bit of briefly what we are doing in Italy. I'm Claudia Pollina. I work for the Department of Digital Transformation in Italy, and I'm a service designer. I won't go actually, I won't speak about strategy because we spoke a lot about it. Also next year, we were here last year, talking to you how we will proceeding to the strategy of interoperability in Italy. Today, we do have two digital platforms, the National Digital Data Platform that actually deals with is an API catalog that deals with the authentication and the authorization. And then we do have, I am the product owner of the National Data Catalog, Schema Govit. There is a semantic asset catalog at national level. And we do, I will talk about actually the semantic stewardship and some tactical we have brought to the Italian market to push the market to the interoperability. Okay, the Italian National Interoperability Framework is really composed by this PD&D, interoperability, and the catalog, where actually, it's just a platform. It's a platform where exchange of data are done. I think that the most important thing is that we moved, I will move here, we moved from domain ports to having almost 9,000 public administration exchanging more than 30,000 APIs with a single agreement with the PD&D. So we moved from the bilateral agreements to the single agreements. We have developed strategies. We have developed membership. We focused on the exchanging of data and how this could happen. But again, to push forward for the semantic interoperability, we integrated the two platforms, publishing semantic APIs. So tactically, what are the actions that we adopted? We actually are offering support to help public administration on semantic modeling and on semantic publication because we understood that in Italy, public administration, they don't have the knowledge to modeling the different domains. So we support them with also with AI, with some tools using AI in the modeling. Then we also, stewardshiping them, making the documentation, designing tools. Then we also defined how to design schemas based on the domain knowledge of the semantic assets. So we basically created a way, or let's say, we did the research from the technical point of view to create semantically enriched APIs. And we also defined a score, a semantic schema semantic score that will be actually a way to measure the quality of APIs, of semantic APIs that will be exchanged in the platform, in the digital platform. So, briefly, how we are supporting them. We are really going into kickoff meetings, supporting them time by time, because the catalog is a federated system, so we needed really to expand our domain. We promote the consistent interpretation and interoperability across diverse systems using JSON LD context, inserting in the APIs, using the vocabularies, the ontologies in the APIs. And we also created, I'm sorry for the slide, but we created also this tool, the schema editor, that is open source and is reusable, where actually public administration can also with the use of with the Sparkle endpoint of the catalog, they can annotate, enrich the APIs, and they can also, oh, what's up? There is half of the screen not. Okay. Okay, maybe it's going back, HDMI, I'm seeing it here. Okay. We also have used the score. You can see here the score. So you can enrich the API and also measure the quality of the score, of the semantic within the API. So what we want to do and why we are here in actually two people. So I will just go back to you two. So the tool and the schema semantic score, there is this self-assessment method for improving the semantic description of the data models. Why we are here and why we are in two, because I am part of the, let's say, the central public administration, and here we have one of the use case, one of the public administration that did this process with us. We want to attract and engage a wide range of contributors, Italian level, but for sure this is something that can be replicable also cross-regional, cross-Europe. Public entities to publish, consult, and reuse existing data models. So we didn't stop it on the publishing. We push it forward, the using and exchanging of the APIs. Of course, it's not the only use case. We just used the fund of the Next Generation EU for this specific use case. And then we want effectively engage developers. We need developers. We need people that really use and make the APIs to be part of the semantic domain and develop semantically interoperable APIs and help them with documentation, easy to understand, try the tool and fork it and improve it. So making really practical the work. So I will leave the stage to Andrea Cigliano from INPS. That is actually the welfare.
Thank you, Claudia. Now let's move to real-world use case. Italian Social Security and Welfare Institute is the largest social security institution in Europe, with 125 years of history and more than 450 benefits provided to tens of millions of citizens. Also, one of the largest and most strategic information assets in the Italian public sector. Because its scale and complexity, INPS is both a major producer and consumer of data, making it the perfect candidate for semantic interoperability. As part of our project activity to make data semantically interoperable, INPS has achieved a 93% interoperability score in the welfare domain. This means our ontologies are unified across all public administrations, Italian public administrations, and the regions of Italy, allowing seamless data exchange nationwide. Identifiers, processes, and semantics are standardized, crucial requirements for scaling digital welfare services. But what are the INPS contribution in semantic resources? In Italy, on schema, INPS now contributes, is one of the major contributor, with 52 controlled vocabularies, 17 ontologies, and 41 data schemas. These resources represent one of the largest and most consistent domain models in schema. On national digital data platform, INPS is among the most active participants. We currently provide 157 services and consume 210 from other public institutions. Services are exchanged across all public administration, Italian public administration, and all Italian regions. Our main users include municipalities, universities, and central administrations. This connection shows how welfare depends on data that often originates outside INPS. What is the value generated? The integration on digital data platform and schemas creates an immense value. Better services for citizens and businesses, more accurate data across administrative levels, cross-border interoperability aligned with future EU regulations, and new opportunities for artificial intelligence and automation. Semantic APIs allow automated reasoning, reconciliation of different terminologies, and the creation of advanced services such as eligible simulation, risk scoring models, and so on, and personalized digital experiences. For these reasons, the main pros in use case of INPS are innovative applications and so on. The motivation are the same. But what are the next evolutions? The future of semantic interoperability of INPS and Italy includes integration with artificial intelligence, for example, generative AI, for automated annotation, for example, or knowledge graphs for recognition, reasoning, and the data integration. Or, for example, semantic digital twins in public services. The other item are national language access to government data, AI-powered monitoring of the interoperability ecosystem. This will allow public services not only to exchange data, but to understand it, learn from it, and improve continuously. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Stay next to me. We asked the audience if they have questions on the presentation. In the meantime, if it's possible to put up the Slido QR code again, there are questions coming from the audience online. Some of them they are for Marta, for the previous speaker, but let's see if there is any relevance for this one. Yes, we have one that asks someone, Jose Esteves from Spain is asking, what strategies are you using in Italy to overcome fear of change and above all, the lack of semantic knowledge across the different governmental areas?
I think that I answered saying that we are really staying with public administration. So we are accompanying them to the process. We are not leaving them alone. We are really both platform, in the for the semantic and for the technical and legal and organizational, both platforms, we are with the public administration, helping them. I hope it helped.
Thank you, Claudio. And this is the reason why I invited you, because at some national level, Italy is a good example of how the process to, say, escort the people who are not technical in semantics to maintain consistency in the use of the semantic asset reduces the possibility that each of these entities will produce their own model. And so it's a coordinated effort of making the design decision that makes more sense and overall lifts up the semantic interoperability at the national level. Let's see if we have time for one more questions. For IT, what areas, the scale of investment, I think this is, yeah, maybe this is for you, Andrea. Yeah. What area, the scale of investment for setting up the, these are moving too fast. Yeah. Setting up the system presented today, how long does it take?
Okay. The scale of investment is considerable in INPS because the interoperability for the institute is very important because the institute INPS produce a large amount of data in Italy, and the use of artificial intelligence system model are now developing rapidly, and vuoi dire qualcosa? Oh, okay. And the investment in this case are very considerable, very large.
We started in 2022. And we were funded by Next Generation EU. So the data from the funding are available online, of course. They are transparent. I think that it's not just about money. It's not just about investment. It's really about finding the strategy and like finding and building the tools to help public administration and help them.
Thank you so much. Yes, same strategic outlook we mentioned at the beginning. Thank you so much, Andrea and Claudia. And now our next speaker is from Estonia, from the e-briefing office. Estonia has been at the center of the digitalization for Europe and has been inspiration for many countries, one of which we also have here today with us, Ukraine. So I would like to invite on stage Rannar that will give us an idea of what does it mean to be a country of inspiration digitalization in Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, and welcome from my side as well. Truly an honor to be in a room where hopefully I do not have to explain what interoperability means. What an absolute pleasure. But from my side, yes, from the e-briefing center side, as it is a conference on interoperability and semantics as well, then perhaps to understand what the briefing center's role in the state is today. On a grander level, the briefing center itself exists as the business card for the state. On another hand, it is also the competence center for everything and anything when it comes to digitalization on a national scale. Because we see that conferences such as this don't happen often enough. We need more believers. We need more people to, so to say, vouch for digitalization. Because they're in a time of controversy and in a time of crisis of trust, we need more places where we actually look at what digitalization can offer. And on a comedic note, we were created 16 years ago by our then president because he was tired of having to explain what digitalization meant. So he gave us social Estonians a job. And the mission has been very simple. to introduce and basically convert non-believers of digitalization to our side. Hopefully in this room we don't have that problem and all of you are on my side. But if you're not, please do ask questions, do comment and argue. Because as our former president has once said, there's, one of my slides has gotten nuked, but such is life. One of our former presidents has said that about 12 months ago, when Estonia became 100% digital in our services, so everything from birth to death can now be done from the comfort of your screen. If you're using a tablet, a phone, or a computer, well, it's not just because we value the Nordic approach of not having to talk to people, but rather it's a question of convenience. We know that people are disconnected from each other. We know that digitalization offers us a way to become closer to each other than we've ever been. I truly loved Marta's point of looking at trust as the main driver for digitalization. Because, and for interoperability as well, because without trust, there is no collaboration across borders. So, for Estonia, if we look at how we've built it and what the main core beliefs here are today, well, it does start from political will. And for us, it was never a question. We see that our politicians argue on many a topic, but the one thing that everyone agrees on is that digital is the future. Because at the end of the day, it does not matter if you're right-leaning or left-leaning. Doing your taxes sucks. Doing your taxes in any country takes time. And it does not matter who you voted for, it still takes time. So if you want the process to be quicker, if you want it to be simpler, well, we simply trust in digital. So from the very early days of the 1990s, once we became re-independent, we converted our politicians. And we've been lucky enough to have had political will through the last 35 years to carry us on this journey of digitalization. On another hand, we see that digitalization and especially building interoperable systems has to have a coordinated effort. There has to be a centralized coordinated effort. And for us, it has, well, we've been playing hot potato with the topic of digitalization. On one hand, it's been in the hands of the Ministry of Communications. On the other hand, it's the Ministry of Justice, because both play an equally large role. And perhaps the most important part, which, again, familiar to people in this room and those joining us online, is that the implementation has to be decentralized. The orders might come from the top, but every single institution has the freedom to implement these solutions as they see fit, because you have to have trust. Not just in your people, not just in your neighbors, but in the government organizations who build these systems. So that's what we've done. And how do you build that trust, or how do you win people's trust? It is not by telling them that this is the only way. It is by proving to them that the system is secure and that it is transparent, that your data is being dealt with in a secure way. And for us, we've been looking at that. And how do we do that? Well, by working together. By working together with the private sector and the public sector, and making sure that everyone has equal opportunity to access these services, and in building these services, avoid vendor lock-in. And of course, not going to dive deep into data protection here, but there's nothing perhaps more important than in a digital government or a digital state than data protection. It needs to be clear, it needs to be understandable to the regular human or the regular citizen who doesn't come to interoperability conferences. And, yes. But at the end of the day, we also see that digitalization does create a digital divide. There will always be a social divide when it comes to digitalization. Whether in a country where everything is digital or nothing is digital, we need to come together, and as Marta put it very wonderfully as well, we need to be at a certain level of maturity. And the digital divide is currently deepening, of course, thanks to the different new technologies that are being implemented. So I want to, very quickly, not going to explain any of the laws, but to simply show where Estonia's approach started from, especially when it comes to semantic interoperability. Because semantics meaning that we all understand that a car is a car. And I love the already early shout out from Marta about the Estonian and Finnish project of the prescription service. Today, it's actually available in Croatia, Portugal, and Spain as well. So whether you walk into any of those pharmacies, everyone understands that an ibuprofen is an ibuprofen. That is because here we see legislation as a huge advantage. We see that across Europe, the medical acts that we've enacted and the cross-European medical legislation defines many medications as they should be. So it doesn't matter if you're in Croatia, in Estonia, or in beautiful Porto, everyone understands what an ibuprofen is. But it's more important that the databases understand it. And from another angle, we see that what guarantees the system's resiliency, because we see that it needs to be built strongly. On one hand, the confidentiality is dealt with by our electronic identity itself. Then, at the same time, to keep the systems running, you need secure services, you need secure servers, and a public key infrastructure, meaning that everything is decentralized, but everything is also made available through what we've been using for the last 24 years, which is the X-Road interoperability platform. Now, the wonderful thing about it is that it is open source. It's been a wonderful collaboration between Estonia and Finland for many, many years, and now we have more partners on board. But as always, there's more room. There's more room in the sauna, so to say. Yes, an Estonian talking about saunas, very original. But on the other hand, to look at what the electronic identity can offer us across Europe, at least from an Estonian standpoint, we see that we should be moving on from our identity cards as simply existing as a plastic card. There's so much more value there. And that's why we see that the average Estonian has become disillusioned by the idea of digitalization. Many of the nation's citizens don't believe, not that they don't believe, rather they don't ask questions. And that is perhaps the most dangerous thing for a citizen, or for a population to have happen to them. They stop caring. Because for us, we see that discontent or being annoyed with your government is perhaps our national sport. You have to ask questions, you have to stay critical, because that is the only way a government will know that you actually care. But at the same time, we walk into our local overpriced coffee shops, we walk to the airport, or to our pharmacies with the same little plastic card in hand. Because we understand that many of us don't have wallets anymore. And those of us that do don't want 15 different plastic cards bulging them. So we transfer them to a single, decentralized, yet central digital identity. And we see that it should act as a central governmental gateway. Because for Estonia, at least, we see that there's more than 2,600 services that have been made digital. And they're not available through different digital means, but rather through one single gateway. It shouldn't be made difficult for the citizens. It should be made as easy for them as possible to access these services. Because we see, and I am of course biased as a former education worker as well, that education is where it all begins. We're not just talking about school education, but rather a general level of digital education, a digital citizenship, so to say. And that's why we see that from July of this year, we also transferred to a digital version, which Ukraine, of course, has fast-forwarded past us, which is incredible to see, honestly. And the next speaker will talk all about it, but there's much to gush about when it comes to the simple ease and access of digital services from your phone. For many of us, it's a question of convenience. For others, it's a question of, well, it's a matter of resiliency. It's a matter of national resiliency. And for that reason, I want to go and see what we actually guarantee with our services. That when it comes to interoperability, well, we see that it's the main driver behind accessibility for citizens. Because what is digitalization if not a tool for everyone to have equal opportunity to participate in democratic processes, to participate in the dealings of your local government or state government? And that's why I won't go into detail when it comes to our most criticized services, which are, of course, our iVoting system, which I'm guessing creates some questions in this room as well. But for 20 years, we've been trusting our democratic processes, optionally, of course, to the internet, that you can vote wherever, whenever, however you please. And most controversially, you can change your vote, which always goes over well with international audiences. But we see that digitalization's main purpose has been to increase participation, to make sure that people from rural areas as well as international diaspora have the opportunity to access these services. And that's where interoperability plays perhaps the biggest role. Because for us, the next step in digitalization, well, it's half hidden, but is a personal government. That it's not the job of me, the citizen, to go knocking on every single door on a governmental service provider level. Rather, the government should come to me and tell me what it is that they can offer me. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's child healthcare benefits, or a simple tax rebate. Everything that we do should be personal. It should be provided for me exactly as you get personalized offers from every single e-store that you visited because it's Black Friday week right now. So in the same way, we see that the government should come to you, not you have to go knocking on the government's door. But I know I covered multiple topics on a very superficial level. So I hope that you have questions for me, and I want to say thank you.
Wow, if that is not an inspiration, 100% digital. If you're in Estonia before you die, register your death. We'll take questions for Rannar from the audience. Yes, I have to run there. There is help with the microphone.
Thank you. Klaus Dickmann from Germany. One question. You showed you showed a perfect world, or a very, very, not perfect, but a good world. But how do you deal with when democracy comes under pressure? No sense whether from the left or from the right side. Then you have a lot of centralized data. And how can the individual person be protected well, from misuse or abuse of data?
Absolutely. From our side, we see that actually none of our data is centralized. Every single piece, I always like to compare it to a jigsaw puzzle, that Estonians' data is managed in such a way that the digital identity or the physical identity card functions as the box within which the puzzle pieces should rely in. But instead of keeping them in the box, every single piece of Estonians' data is fragmented, decentralized, and anonymized, and given to a different governmental entity or registry. So that when a hack happens, when someone accesses one of our databases, because of course it will happen, and it has happened, then they get access to nothing but an anonymized and encrypted piece of data. For example, in 2017, we had a breach to our pharmacy systems. What they gained access to was 700,000 passport photos. So 700,000 pictures of people who look like me, your average Estonian potato eater. If they were training ChatGPT in a few years, they could use that model to create the perfect Estonian. But on a personal level, no data was lost. It was a completely decentralized kind of approach. And that's how it's always been, well, for the last 20 years at least.
Thank you, Rannar. One more question we can take for Rannar. If you don't have questions, you can still vote the questions that are coming in from who's watching remotely on the Slido, so we can understand where your interest goes. But maybe we can take one question from online. How do you make sure that citizens are not left alone when they experience issues with the digital services and systems? How can they get in touch with the government and get help?
Yes, I mean, from the very beginning, we had to understand that not everyone will have internet at home. Even today, in 2025, internet penetration is about 95% in Estonian households. So 5% of those households are still disconnected. But for the last 25, almost 30 years at this point, we have been using our public libraries and public schools as access points, public and free access points to the internet and to your services as well. Because even though today, yes, we are very proud to say that we're 100% digital, all of those services can still, even though they are much more abstract or they're much more difficult to complete, you can still technically get it done on paper. So that if for any specific reason you don't trust the government, the internet, Steve Jobs for creating the iPhone, you can still get things done on in person. And we've trained thousands of librarians and teachers to be those kind of gateways to kind of throw you into the digital infrastructure.
Amazing, amazing. So I guess that last statement addresses the questions. How do you make sure that the elderly do this? Exactly.
Yes. The elderly, well, they were our first point of focus. We saw that we had to focus on our young people and our elderly. So today, after more than 20 years of digitalization, we're lucky to say that our elderly are rather tech savvy. From grandmothers using Google Gemini to kind of transfer fluid ounces to milliliters, to them using it to actually build, vibe code, basically. We see that there's, instead of knitting clubs, we have these kind of very simplistic coding clubs in our hospitals or our care homes.
Thank you so much, Rannar.
Thank you.
Let's thank you, Rannar. And let's close shop and let's move to Estonia, everybody. So this is the perfect introduction for me for the next speaker, a nation who has accelerated their digitalization by connecting with Estonia and importing. This is the first example of transplant, importing a digitalization solution. With me, it's Volodymyr Brusilovski from Ukraine, and then he will tell us how this transplant has taken place and how it has been a success.
This is forward, right? Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Volodymyr Brusilovski, which is close enough what you said. So currently I'm working as advisor to first Prime Minister of Ukraine and dealing with general digitalization and sort of cybersecurity and cloud policy and cloud spheres. Previously and still currently I'm working as well as UNEP. So I have these two hats, both from public sector as well as from NGO sectors as well. I will talk a bit about what Ukraine did with digitalization, and of course I will talk about our work with Estonian on digitalization. But before that, I want to mention, to put what we do into perspective. Just last night, Kyiv and Ukraine have another missile attacks, one of the biggest this year. And coming to this conference, writing to my loved ones, to my family, are they okay? And now I'll be talking about digitalization. And I believe that despite war, despite what you think about Ukraine right now and what Ukraine dealing with, I think digitalization matters because it gives hope for Ukrainians. It gives perspective about better life, about changing things, about better reality for you, for your children, and for your country. So, basically, why Ukraine doing digital? What's the rationale behind it? Why we have some successes and whatnot? I think it's very similar to Estonia. Ukraine is post-Soviet republic. We're basically dealing with a lot of really horrible processes and service, and our service provision, traditional service, public service provision is quite bad. So when our digital teams begin pumping out digital initiatives and early digital successes, society generally tend to accept it really well. Ukrainians, relatively to other European countries, are really open about innovation and digital and digitalization because it's much better than the old system. So this gives us political capital and this positive feedback loop to move forward. Our vision for Ukraine is, of course, part of European Union, part of Europe. the countries that we hope will have sort of the best digital governance and digital government in the world, and Ukrainians sort of supposed to have this sort of best in the world digital tools, and sort of that they will work with, especially with other European countries as well. So I will talk about how we do it, what we've done, and what's our next steps. About who we are. So in Ukraine, as probably you know, we have Ministry of Digital Transformation. We centralized, as my colleague from Estonia said, we centralized policy decisions as much as we could, and we decentralized implementation. We have what we call state-owned enterprise Diia, which is basically our technical team. We have several in-house teams on implementation, including software teams development, product management, project management, business analysis, and whatever. As well as we have what we call network of CDTO, Chief Digital Transformation Officers, which is deputy ministries, deputy head of agencies, deputy head of regions, and sort of whatever. And this is basically C-level managers that doing only digital transformation, and they are part of every public institution in Ukraine. This gives us this sort of decentralized implementation mechanisms where we could, as part of Ministry of Digital Transformation, come up with as a policy and have this sort of really robust and really sort of real, I would say, mechanisms of actually implementation these policies. As well as we have, as I mentioned, regional CDTOs, as well as sort of digital teams in agencies. In terms of our sort of products, what we actually do, we have a lot of them. Today, I will stop on several that's related to interoperability, including transport and interoperability. But you could say we have Diia, which is, as you know, sort of Diia application and web portal related to public services. We have Mria, which is, we think, will be sort of big change in education, which is application and web portal for every parent, every student, and every teacher in the country. That brings sort of new style of education and new enablers for education to every school, kindergarten, and potentially sort of university in Ukraine. We have Brave One, which is sort of this innovation hub for defense tech, which is currently basically is a place where most of Ukraine's innovation in defense come from, as well as many other initiatives sort of generally related to digital stuff. When we're talking about Diia, what's Diia? Diia is a mobile application web portal. Currently, we have 23 million users using this mobile application. We have around 1 million daily active users and around 10 million monthly active users. We have 250 electronic documents, meaning passports, studying cards, driver licenses, whatever, as well as digital services on this platform. We have launched first sort of fully digital passports. We launched first fully digital marriage, so you could marry online. Later this year, maybe beginning next year, we launch, unfortunately, fully divorce online, but this is a necessity for the situation that we're in. As well as we sort of doing a lot of other stuffs. And this sort of big, shiny, sort of everybody, a lot of people know about Diia, is built upon interoperability, basically platform. We call it Trembita. This is Ukrainian sort of platform that heavily based on, basically built upon X-Road platform, which is Estonian X-Road platform. We've been working with Estonia since basically 2014 and even before that, but the platform itself was launched in 2020, fully sort of in production. We already have around 3 billion transactions per year. We connected to 1,000 plus registries and databases, public databases. And this is sort of the basis on Diia. Without this interoperability framework, every public services would be basically impossible. What we did, aside from just importing X-Road and using it, we sort of work, of course, on security. We implemented some features that we must do to be compliant with Ukrainian legislation, including cryptography, different cryptography mechanisms, a lot of work on security as well. Work, as I mentioned, we connected to a lot of registry, including old one. And currently, we, in top of X-Road, Trembita, we're building mechanisms of data validation and improving data quality, which is, we hope, will be the next big steps. In terms of governance, again, we sort of integrated with a lot of registers and institutions. We built, on top of Trimbita, we built a single catalog for public services. So when you want to reuse already existing API or already existing services, you don't actually need to redo it. We still need to do a lot of work in terms of sort of legal stuff. So, for example, colleagues from Italy presented this sort of framework agreement of interoperability. I think this is a great idea for us as well. So we think about it. Based on Trimbita, as I mentioned, we launch a lot of digital signature, digital documents and digital services, including sort of very complex one, including the ones that related to the war. Several weeks ago, we launched the sort of complex service we call Path of the Wounded, which is basically a service for people who get injured, both civilian and military personnel injured in the war, and they receive benefits and statuses and payment and support much easier than receive it before that. So our digitalization is not only sort of the civilian sectors, is basically an answer to the real sort of passing problems that government have, and we are able, using all these building blocks, to address this as well. And also, I believe tomorrow I'll be shortly presenting our new sort of major stuff that we launched, is Diia, which is basically a AI assistant to provide public services. Currently, it's chat. You could ask, please give me this service or this benefit or whatever, and the chat will provide it. We think that this is have huge potential to actually extremely increase accessibility of digital services, because as previous speakers mentioned, several population, I would say groups of population, including elderly and people with disability and whatever, have generally need to be push this idea that our services should be as accessible, as simple as they could be. And this, we think that AI could be potentially helping us do that. As well as we launched what we call Diia Signature. I think it's back 2021, which is mobile first digital signatures that's accessible for currently 14 million people. This is the most prolific or most sort of usable digital signature in Ukraine. It's very easy to receive. It's using biometrics in your phone, and currently we have around 90, I would say 100,000 users per day. This include public services, including interaction with banks and other businesses, and sort of whatever you need actually to use public signature. Based on all this work, if you use sort of based your progress, you track your progress based on sort of ratings that one of that is electronic governance digital index, of course. Since I believe 2014, we were on 102nd. Now we 5th in Europe in online service index specifically. And we think sort of some years ago we first on e-participation index. These things that sort of accurately reflect our progress, but we think we should do more. And speaking about transborder interoperability and what we do to work with you, sort of hopefully in January or maybe February next year, we'll launch digital identity wallet in Ukraine. It will be so far sort of only internally in Ukraine, but this will be in production. Every Ukrainian could be issuing the documents and other services that wallet will provide. And as soon as everybody will be on board and we'll be able to launch it as trans-border basically instrument, will be ready to do this. Technically, we hope that early next year it will be already in production. Our vision will launch it in Ukraine, give it to people, and as soon as we're able to, we do it trans-border. We already undergone multiple testing, and we have already legal framework, Ukrainian legal framework at least in place, and we really sort of open and excited to make sure that this tool actually being used not only in Ukraine but actually in European Union as well. Talking about work that we need to be done, this sort of names you know about it a lot more than me. So this sort of legislation, and Ukraine currently going through harmonizing process with European Union legislation. a lot of work needs to be done. Some sort of once only, for example, technical system are already implemented. Some legal stuff need to be done, and hopefully, sort of within some foreseeable future, we'll be able to focus on this work full time, because currently, again, we're switching back and forth with defense and other sort of unfortunately, more pressing issues as well. Yeah, and in terms of why we're doing cross-border interoperability, again, sort of 6 million Ukrainians living in Europe as basically refugees. We really want and we really hope to be part of European family. So that this work gives every Ukrainian sort of perspective to have this vision of the future that is better than right now. And we're really excited to be part of this process. And yeah, and basically, yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Volodymyr. And this is my dream come true for this workshop, because this is a manifestation of what it means to import successful experiences from another country and accelerate your own country. I will take a few questions from the audience. And if it's not from the audience, if I can see the ones from Slido. But in the meantime, I have a question. So as I was connecting with your people and to invite you here, I've learned that after you have imported from Estonia, you're also now helping North Macedonia into accelerating their digitalization. Can you tell a couple of words about it?
Yeah, it's actually not only North Macedonia, so several countries in Africa, and yeah, so basically this is the idea is to, given the Diia became this quite well-known platform, we tried to basically push into open source, and we did, and the idea was to try to bring other countries and try to find solutions where this tool, this basically a mobile first and as well as web platform could be used in different countries as well. The work is ongoing with, for example, Zanzibar, with North Macedonia, and with several others. But yeah, it's work in progress, and we really hope that the sort of best case scenarios that we have in Ukraine with X-Road, which is fantastic for us, and will be the same with Diia abroad. So if anybody interested to work with Diia, if anybody have sort of interest to talk to us and see how our sort of open source code could be used in your situation, we're really open to this. We're really hopeful to be able to support other countries as well as Estonia, and several other countries supported us. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I will take a questions from the audience following remotely. What is the toughest sector to digitalize in Ukraine?
So there is two. There is healthcare and there's defense. It's not really about sort of legislation. It's more about sort of internal culture. Sort of military is notoriously conservative, so it's really hard when you're talking about people with more sort of stars on the uniforms that you could count that digitalization is a good thing. Generally, they tend to be very skeptical, but because in the war situation it's not optional, our team work with the Ministry of Defense and General Staff and other sort of military organization to push several sort of digital services in terms of conscription, in terms of conscription waivers, in terms of sort of updating the status of people that eligible for conscription, basically, and various other stuff. And this, again, necessity is a mother of invention. So when you really need to be able to increase efficiency of some sector, sort of in terms of weeks and maybe months, digitalization usually is the only way how to do it. So defense, problematic because of the internal culture, more sort of conservative, and healthcare is, of course, there is medical data, this is a lot of security issues and a lot of sort of red tape. So I would say medical and defense, yes.
Thank you. If there is no questions from the audience, and I have another curiosity. So you mentioned that in order for you to import this technology from Estonia, you had to influence your politicians. Yes, you had to make them, onboard them on the fact that digitalization is important. And at the beginning of this workshop, I said that one of the factors, yes, is political will. Then there is budgetary commitments, how much money you want to invest, and then there is technology readiness. and the strategic outlook. Can you comment on how much did you have to align this in order to then start successfully this process?
In our case, it began sort of you create very small and very cheap digital products that gives some value to the people, and this creates some political feedback for some politicians that look, they're doing something, right? And you create a second sort of more ambitious project and more ambitious project and more ambitious project. So I would say we start sort of fully in focus on digitalization back in 2014, and it takes 5 years, 2019, till we have really major sort of political successes with new administration and sort of major political backing. So you start small, you expand, you provide value to the citizen, and this in turn provide a democratic system, provide sort of feedback, political sort of points to, let's say, to politicians, and this creates this snowball effect when you could ask for more and more and more, and you could argue that, listen, this very sort of intensive work with Estonia of importing system, changing legislation, investing money into operations, or whatever is actually worth it, because it will create this and this and this, and this will be the same but better than we did before. That works for us, and I sort of, this is my mantra. Ukraine is in a way, I would say, lucky, because our sort of post-Soviet infrastructure, public service infrastructure as well, is pretty bad. It's very bad. So when you create something new, and this new is not slightly better, but like revolutionary better, right? It's like miles better. Then your citizens actually see this effort and see this difference, and this create this feedback mechanism. So for us, this is what's create our digitalization push. We just start small and then expand, basically. Yes.
Thank you so much. So it can be done. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you.
And I'm introducing you our next speaker, another country who is the forefront of digitalization, Finland. Rita Alkola will tell us a little bit of the story of how Finland became digital and the challenges. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. It has been very interesting to hear these success stories, because 100 years ago Finland was a very poor country after bloody civil war, and we have our boost after the First World War and Second World War. First we were agricultural land, and now we are, let's say, quite far in the front line. But I think that it's very important, as we all have discussed the interoperability, and these words are from the Marta's interviews, and it is that interoperability is a very difficult word, at least for the speech recognition. And I think that one thing is also that we who are dealing with it are used to that, okay, interoperability, it's awful difficult word for others, so that we swallow the last part of it, and we just say inter and then blah, blah, blah. So I think that the most important thing about it is also that it is operability, so that we must make it true. We must make it to operate, so that we shouldn't swallow that ending anymore. We should be proud of what we do. And that is something that interoperability framework has been useful so far. So that I think that it's good now that we have to act, because on voluntary basis the things were not going so much forward. So there are still some things that we need more incentives. We have issues with implementation and so on. So the question is where we are now. And we are now, I'm going to tell about our INVEST project, where we make some kind of mapping of the current situation and also what will the future be like. And so our consortium is formed by 7 member states, and our objective was to encourage member states to participate this development of cross-border services and information systems, so that we have a mapping of the existing needs and emerging needs, and what kind of key actions there would be needed, what kind of stakeholder engagement we need, and we also should assist European Union about the evaluation and monitoring mechanism. By the way, I don't see my own slides on these screens here, so that's why I have to look at that way. So what were the outcomes? We had a strategic roadmap. We wrote a document regarding what kind of future projects there should be and what kind of needs there are, so that what kind of things people need. And we have this regulatory sandbox framework, so that the idea was that because legislation is different in different countries, we need sandboxes to test how we can combine the different kind of legislation and test those things. And one thing was also the stakeholder engagement, what are the needs of different people, and so Marta did a very wide round around Europe and interviewed very many experts, so that there's not only the usual suspects, but also very many other people that were interviewed. And one very important thing was that we tried to find out what kind of synergies there were. And for example, if we have defined what is a person in SDG oaths, then wouldn't it be useful that the same kind of definition of a person was also used in other projects like EUD wallets, and so that we wouldn't need to define all the basic things over and over again, but use or reuse the former things we have. So about Finland, so how have we done things? And I think that one of the important thing is that we must have the legal background, so that the politicians set what are the priorities and what are the important things. So that, for example, we had in 2011, we had an Act on Information Management Governance, and then we introduced the new term enterprise architecture to Finnish public sector. So that the idea is that we should do the things not in silos, but we should consider that our government is one entity and we should have a common architecture. Well, after the times went by, then we had the next step, and the next information management model was more about the interoperability, not so much architecture, but we took a step forward from technical interoperability to the data and semantic interoperability. And I found out old SEMIC presentation my colleague had back in the days, so that it's one thing is that you have to have a vision also, that what is where you are going to, so that on the below you have the base registers. We have very good base registers in Finland for people, for health, for cars, and so on. So you have to have something to build on. And then about the data findability, that was where we started, and then there was different kind of things. But for example, you see that there is AI assistance and learning AIs, so that currently we say machine learning. But anyways, so that already that time we see that that AI would be something to be of importance. Perhaps legislation is not yet as semantic resource as we thought back in the days, but something like that. So here are some interoperability solutions and initiatives, so that well, thin line between solutions and then what is the initiative. Some kinds, first you have initiative and project, and then it comes to a solution. But for example, we have a long way to the old implementation, and then, for example, we have from the initiatives we have a common project with Nordic and Baltic countries. And we have, for example, Suomi FI services that we have public service catalogs, e-identification, and the idea was that we got funding to make this kind of common solution so that it is not useful to have one identity. Each ministry and agency have their own identification system, but it should be one common for the whole country. And then about domains, we have, for example, we have that Kanta service that is healthcare and social services, and that is one of our examples. So that we had many patients registers around in the different regions, and all of them have their own patient system, and then they were digitalized, and then it came to time to when we should make electronic archive, and that archive was something that that we didn't want to do that again in all the regions. So we made one common infrastructure instead of the many archives, and after we did that archive, then we realized, okay, you can also reuse that information that others have created. So it was that we had many regions and we had high costs, but we realized that one central system might help us to reduce costs, and we also noticed that after this harmonization we could save money. And even though the regions in the beginning, they were not so happy because they lost their money, so to say, because they used that they have funding for their own region. But after all, the benefits were that, for example, if they wanted to have procurement, then it's easier when you have similar kind of needs and specifications all around the country, so that you don't have to stick to that one only company that provides your systems, but you can get also services from others. Well, then about the challenges, we had a lot of challenges, of course, and about the legal and so on, but I think that you already know many of them, so that there are, for example, even though there are need to transfer data, you are not allowed to do it because you don't have a law that allows that. And then about the economic challenges, it's usual that they tell the benefits, but of course the benefits are usually indirect and they come apparent over time, and the costs are visible, so that's something that also the problems with asymmetry of costs and benefits. That the people who provide the data take the costs, and the benefits are outside of their organization, so that it's not so nice to make something. And technical, as said, always you can say that, okay, you took the wrong tool and wrong technology. And if the data is not structured, it's too much task to work to make it structured, and so on and so on. But I think that one important thing is the semantic misalignment, so that we think that we are talking about same things, but for example, if we say customer, will that customer mean same to me as it is to you? So I think how to overcome these things is to, for example, develop a shared benefit model and how to balance cost and assume costs and benefits. And also one thing is that we should implement semantic governance so that we need we agree on the semantic definitions and make common semantic artifacts, and also provide some shared architecture and also strengthen data quality and identity. But I think that one thing is that that shouldn't be so difficult, because earlier we have done a similar thing in the paper world, and we have done this earlier, so that that shouldn't be so complicated. But it seems that sometimes it's that okay, we have a project and everything else is ready, but we haven't agreed on the common definitions. So I think that we are starting from the wrong point. We should start from the semantic definitions. But then, what next? I think that now we have to act, so we should set those priorities, and like interoperability assessments are a tool so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel again. That is something very important that we should learn from each other. And then we need real-world cases so that we need to know what others are doing, so that we can pick the berries from the best solutions. And as already you have heard about the trust. Trust is the very important thing, because if people don't trust you, then they won't use your services even, unless they have to. And other countries won't use your solutions if they don't trust you, so that is very important. And regarding the interoperability, it's not the term, but how to implement the idea, so that it's our common task to do that. And in this sense, this event provides us an excellent opportunity to learn from each other and from the experience of experts. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. We'll take questions, whether from the audience or from Slido for Rita. If I can see the Slido questions. In the meantime, the Slido question comes up. So maybe curiosity from my side, how is the political class reacting to digitalization endeavors in Finland?
Political class?
Politicians.
Politicians. Okay, so I think that politicians are, of course, pro-digitalization, but of course it's also a matter of money and priorities. So that in one sense you need to show the clear benefits, what is important, so that you get funding. So that it's not only that the great ideas in legislation, but you also need budgetary funding for those things. And I think that one sense, because we have a good ground in our country, it's also that it's something that we should build on, so that, for example, we heard about event-based services. Now so that we are going from the organizational based of services to the life event of the people, so that in that sense we are trying to improve anyways and try to serve the citizens better.
Thank you. I still can't see the questions from online, but I would say that for interest of time and for give you enough minutes for a break between this half of the workshop and the next, we thank you, Rita. And I will thank you. I will close this first half saying that, from what I've heard and from the intention of this workshop, digitalization is contagious, which means if you surround yourself with a highly digitalized country, you probably be digitalized yourself, which is in fact the message. Transplanting digitalization is an effective way to even the field of digitalization in Europe and to achieve the objective that we have for 2030. And now with this, I officially close this half of the workshop. But thank you, my speakers, because I've been really proud to have them on stage. And thank you, the audience here in the room and from their desk at home or their office. And I'll see you next after 15 minutes of break. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Is everything on? Can you hear me? Perfect. I would like to welcome you all back to the second segment of this workshop we've had here today. And what an insightful discussion we have had so far. But now I'm here to present our next part, where we will have some presentations from the Nordic Council of Ministers. From a top-down view, we have Cecilia and Ingrid from the Secretariat, and then we have a presentation on a project level from Adam Arndt from the Agency for Digital Government, where he will touch upon the Nordic-Baltic cooperation on regulation here in the Nordics. And finally, we will also have some concrete projects underneath the Ministerial Council for Digitization, where we will have the NOBIT project, and as well as the OOTS 2.0. So without further ado, I would like to bid Cecilia and Ingrid welcome.
Hello. Should these also change up here or no? Well, I guess we start without slides then. Well, my name is Cecilia Levaux, and I'm a senior advisor for the Nordic Council of Ministers Secretariat here in Copenhagen. And, well, there we go. I'm only Cecilia. Ingrid is still in the seats there, but she will come up after me, and we are happy to be here to introduce you to the Nordic Council of Ministers, who we are, what we do, and why we are relevant to you, even if you may not be living in the Nordic or Baltic region. In 2019, the Nordic Prime Ministers agreed on a shared vision. They called it Our Vision 2030. And that is that the Nordic region should become the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. That means, of course, that interoperability, shared data, aligning standards, and seamless user experiences across border is at the core of our cooperation. The Nordic Council of Ministers was founded in 1971 and is the official platform for intergovernmental cooperation in the Nordic region. Despite the name, it is not one ministerial council, but rather 14, each for one policy area. And each of these ministerial councils have their own budget, their own work program, and their own political priorities. However, everything working together to achieve the shared vision of the prime ministers. And the way we do this is simple. We seek common solutions whenever and wherever and whenever the countries can achieve more together than they can by itself. For obvious reasons, there were no Ministerial Council for Digitalization in 1971. And that's what Ingrid and I are working to facilitate the collaboration in the Ministerial Council for Digitalization. That was added in 2017. And I might say the reason for creating this Ministerial Council was to implement one of the projects that you will hear about later today, the NOBIT project, the Nordic-Baltic EID project. That was the reason for creating the Nordic-Baltic collaboration on digitalization. And when they did that in 2017, they also did another novel thing. They invited our Baltic neighbors to join. Luckily, they accepted, and that have strengthened the collaboration tremendously. Ingrid and I will try to set the scene for you for the real world use cases from the Nordic-Baltic region that you will hear more about in just a second. These cases that also Dawood introduced you briefly to, the NOBAREG project, which is the Nordic-Baltic Working Group on EU regulation, the NOBIT project, the Nordic-Baltic EID project, and the OOTS project, the once only Technical System 2.0, are all good examples of a regional approach to digital governance, aligning early, learning together, and solving common challenges in a coordinated way. But they are also really good examples of where EU provide the overarching framework, the standards, and the scale, while the Nordic-Baltic region can contribute by testing, piloting, implementing, and showing what these principles can look like in practice. I think we have really good examples of these projects where they have taken draft solutions, looking at them, piloting them, and be able to come back to the Commission saying, you know what, we found these things that might not work so good, or we found these when we tried to implement this in our small environment. And then we can change, and we can actually make it all function better at the very end. In this context, the digital rights and principles of the EU are particularly relevant. Those are core to keep the trusts of citizens and companies in a fast-moving digital transformation. We heard also from previous speakers that without trust, we cannot drive public sector digital transformation. And in the Nordic collaboration, we love to talk about trust. We even call it the Nordic gold. We talk about it all the time, actually. But we do that for a reason. Having high trust between citizens, governments, and institutions is what enables us to move fast, to pilot, and to innovate at the same time as driving the public sector digital transformation. Because we are small and digitalized, and because we have these high levels of trust, we have the agility to move quickly, to testing solutions and aligning standards, then later can be scaled to EU level. And I think that's why the Nordic cooperation is important also for you, for the EU. That while we have the scale and the platform, I mean, I'll be frank, the financing that we have in the Nordic cooperation is nowhere near what you would have in the big EU projects. And we don't have the scale. But what we do have is the ability to test, to pilot, and then come back to the EU and feed in solutions into the bigger projects. And I think that's where we have a really valuable partnership. Before handing over to Ingrid, I would like to say just a few words about some related topics to the agenda that we will talk about this afternoon and also tomorrow. We will discuss in this conference AI and semantics, what role AI can play in building efficient and impactful public services, and under what conditions we need, what conditions we need to have to make sure that AI adoption creates genuine public value. And I realize that this is really depending on what kind of LinkedIn bubble you are in. If you are in the LinkedIn bubble where you have heard about this, you have heard nothing else the last couple of weeks. If this is outside of your LinkedIn bubble, you have probably never heard about it. This is the New Nordics AI. It was launched on the 22nd of October. It is a new Nordic-Baltic AI center for driving adoption of AI solution across the Nordic-Baltic region. And I would like to be very clear. This is not a Nordic institution. It is not part of the Nordic Council of Ministers. It will never appear on that beautiful organigram that you just saw. But I would like to say that it exists thanks to the the Nordic Council of Ministers, because 3 different ministerial councils came together to finance the establishment of this center. The purpose of the center is to drive AI adoption in the Nordics, is to strengthen the national ecosystem. Is actually built on top of the national ecosystems with a small central unit in Stockholm, and then having staff in the participating countries in the national ecosystems in the Nordic region. The Baltic countries have not yet joined, but I know that these discussions are fast-moving, and we hope to see all the 3 Baltic countries joining very soon. And I think this is yet another example of when we try to find solution to common problems where we can work better together than by going it alone. And by this, I would like to hand over to Ingrid, who will give you a good example of interoperability in practice.
Thank you, Cecilia. And thank you for letting us come here to present the Nordic-Baltic cooperation on digitalization. We in the Nordic countries, not the Nordic-Baltic, but in the Nordics, we have 0.3% of the global population, and we have 1% of the global GDP. The similarities that bring us together are we're well connected, we're highly digitized, and as Cecilia has said, we have a very high level of trust, which enables us as small countries to get things done in a particular way. We aim to be the most integrated region in the world by 2030, but there are certain things that also makes us different. We do not have all of our countries as part of the EU. Some are part of the EEA and some are autonomous regions. And we have, even with that diversity, we have sort of led the way in certain aspects. In the 50s, we've had a passport union, which was about 3 decades before the Schengen Agreement. And we're hoping on interoperability to also try and lead the way. And to give this practical example, I will have to bring you to identity matching. So identity matching is important for 2 reasons. It is the ability of a citizen or a person or a business to use their electronic ID in one country to log into a service in another country. So it has everything to do with interoperability, and it's important for 2 reasons right now. One is because we want better and interoperable public services. The other is that with the EU's generous Christmas gift for next year, the digital identity wallets, we will need identity matching to solve that being cross-border. And in the Nordic region, this is a particular issue in the Nordics and the Baltics, and that is to solve identity matching, we need our population registries. And our population registries are quite similar in our countries. And what we want to do is, like with the passport union, we want to kind of go a step beyond and show, hey, if you're going to work with the population registries, you're going to solve identity matching, why not go a step beyond? Because we already, between our population registries, we share data. So we share residency data. When one person moves from one country to another, then that is done automatically. So I have moved from Norway to Denmark. I don't have to emigrate from Norway. That is done automatically. I only have to immigrate in Denmark. When I moved to Belgium, that did not happen. Thank you. Someone else has lived in Belgium here. I can hear that. So what we're trying to do now, which we have the political will from the prime ministers, we have it from the Nordic cooperation ministers, we have it from the Nordic-Baltic ministers of digitalization. Everyone is on board that while we're solving identity matching, giving the population registries the resources and the mandate to solve that, because it is incredibly important to get that solved, we want to see, can we go a step beyond? What can we do on the existing framework that we have, where we share data, to continue that sharing the data. There's been examples of a person dying in one country, but having 2 passports, and then suddenly the relatives receives a voting card or letters to the deceased person. We don't want that to happen, and we should make sure that it doesn't happen automatically. To do that, we need to connect the population registries. So a utopia in this sense would be to have one common Nordic-Baltic population registries, which is far away, but what we're doing until we could move in that direction is to do it case by case. And there's a lot of work ongoing now. We have the political will, but we're working on the implementing level to see, okay, how does that work in practice? So I encourage you all, we will be on a stand tomorrow out here. I'll be there if you want to talk more in detail about this. We will have projects here on the stage, including the NOBIT project and the OOTS, which also works on some of these issues, that you can come and talk to get a little bit more information about how, as a very well-integrated and highly digitalized region, how are we working together and what can we all offer to other regions in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, to the Nordic Council of Ministers. I would like to just mention that we will not be taking questions right now, but we will have a discussion right after. But without further ado, we will have now a presentation from our colleague Adam Arndt from the Agency for Digital Government, who will be talking about the Nordic-Baltic Cooperation on Regulation. Thank you.
Thank you all. Welcome to my hometown. There we go. I'm going to talk to you about lawyers. A very fitting topic for an interoperability forum. I'm sure some of you will agree, some of you will be very questioning of that. The thing is that implementing EU regulation is a lonely job. Usually in each country, very few people work on any piece of legislation, but it's also important work because once the politicians have decided what the law should be, we are the ones who have to make it work in practice. And I should notify, I am not a lawyer myself, but I've been working for a long time trying to make stuff that lawyers wrote work in practice. And to support each other within the Nordic countries and Baltic countries that are very similar and think very alike, the Norwegian government decided a couple of years ago that we should have a forum to discuss how the heck are we going to get all this European stuff to fit with our national stuff. And for that, we created they created, it's before my time, a forum for regulators where we can discuss how do we understand the EU regulation, how can we make it make sense in a Nordic-Baltic context. The method is very basic, essentially, very simple. We get together and talk about what we feel we need to talk about. What are we unclear about? What do we need to do? How can we make things work? And how can we make them work across borders? And it's a great benefit for us to have a forum of very like-minded and reasonably like-organized countries so that we can, as Cecilia and Ingrid said, use the Nordic region as almost a laboratory for making things work nationally and cross-nationally. So we have a couple of members for each Nordic and Baltic country in the, as standing members of the network, and then we can invite colleagues to participate for specific discussions that are relevant to others. The format that we use is very important to us, that we actually meet physically 3 times a year. The latest meeting was yesterday as a pre-party to this workshop. A very important part of the meetings is a social dinner that we have. Fortunately, everything is paid for by the Nordic Council of Ministers. We're very thankful for that. That means that we don't have to convince people to come because the check is taken care of. But it is an important part of the work, actually, to socialize, to get to know each other, to be comfortable reaching out to each other if we're struggling with something outside of the meetings. And it just makes everything go smoother that we know each other. Also, on a more personal note, know who is the sourdough champion and whose kids are sick, and so on and so forth. We try to work between the meetings as well by giving each other homework so that we can collect data and correlate it on a European level. The scope of NORBIC is by design fairly narrow. We have the 4 acts with white text as our current scope. Originally, we also had the AI Act, but when we made the current version of NORBIC a little over a year ago, we decided that AI would suck the air out of any room that it goes into, so we did not want it to suffocate us as well. So we have other fora for that. So we coordinate and discuss, more discuss than coordinate essentially, how are we going to transpose the EU regulation into national law? How are we going to manage the oversight tasks, who's going to be the competent authorities in the different countries so we can inspire each other, saying that, oh, it's going to be the telecoms agency in one country, it's going to be the statistical bureau in another country, and so on. So we can inspire each other, help each other find the best solution, but we don't try to agree common solutions as such. What we do is inform each other about what we're doing in each individual country. We are also doing deliverables as a fairly novel thing because we feel that we now have a stable, really good forum of a good group of people, and we want to share the knowledge that we collect, so it isn't just all in our heads, but also can be spread beyond our little close-knit group. And we're currently working on and expect to deliver in about a month a model of the EU regulation, starting with the 4 regulations on screen here, and then the related regulations, which is a lot. There are many, many references in the EU legislation, so trying to get an overview of what is connected how is something that we need, and we think that all of Europe needs it, and we are very happy to share what the results of our ongoing project when it's done. So I think actually that was it for me. Oh, sorry, just one more thing. Yeah, that's why you should always recheck your slides before you're going on stage. The thing is, what we've learned is that we have the task of implementing the same thing in all the countries, but we do it very differently, and to some extent we have to do it differently. And as I said, we use those differences to inspire each other, to push each other to think, could I maybe do something differently in Denmark to make it better for the Danes, based on what the Finns or the Estonians or the Ålanders are doing. And the whole premise and the success of the project is based on having the right people in the right room at the right time. And again, that's why the social affairs, the breaks are important, the dinners are important. Everybody in this room knows that you're not here to listen to me, you're here to do networking and talk to each other. And that's what we try to facilitate in Nordic as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. As mentioned before, we are outside in the main hall. If you want to learn more about our Nordic cooperation on the stand where you can meet us with us and talk with us later, we will gladly share all the information that you are interested in. But without further ado, we will also move forward to the next part. And today I have our colleagues from Norway who will be presenting about the NOVID project. So without further ado, we have Nis and Peter from Norway.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I will give a short introduction of the NOVID project on identity matching. And my colleague Peter will be up here and go through the a demonstration of the system which we actually have created. However, since we only have 10 minutes, there will be some shortcuts, and we will be out on the stand afterwards, so come and ask us questions out there. The Nordic-Baltic EID cooperation under the Council of Ministers, MR Digital, began back in 2017 with the focus on the idea that we are stronger together than each of these small, highly digitalized countries on its own. The region has largely similar digital infrastructure, giving us excellent conditions to serve as a lighthouse within the EU on digitalization. The main goal, The main goal is to make it easier for people in the region to be digital across borders. The Nordic countries were early movers in making it simple to relocate and work across countries. The digital dimension, however, has lagged behind. Our ambition is that citizens should be able to use their home country digital identity in another country. Joint effort saves us for a lot of time and resources and makes us faster and more digital. These is our two main projects for 2025 and 2026. Identity matching, taking these digitalized countries to the next level, also when it comes to the cross-border digitalization. Certification of the Audi wallet, a joint effort to get the wallets certified in a fragment of the cost and effort jointly. So why do we do or need identity matching? It is essential for enabling citizens to access services in a country other than their own. Services they legitimately need. Consider a pensioner who has worked in another country and then moved back home. Today, they often face cumbersome processes to prove their identity, location, and even that they are still alive in order to continue receiving their payments. Cross-border identity matching removes this friction by allowing them seamless verification across countries. This is a large group of stakeholders whose participating is essential. To ensure ownership of the result, we need them to be engaged. However, we distinguish between active project members and observers. And this slide shows how the region is scaling up practical cross-border identity matching, harmonizing the personal identity, the PID format, needed for both current and future European digital identity frameworks. And then we go to the demo.
Hello. All right, so good day, everyone. I'm going to show you a brief demonstration of the current prototype that we have built in the NOBIT project. If you scan this QR code right now, you are able to follow the entire demo live as I guide you through the entire process. Because I have screenshots of the whole process. Yeah, so in the NOBIT project, we have developed a prototype that aims to demonstrate how identity matching between the Nordic and Baltic countries can work. And we have looked at identity matching not only for the European Digital Identity Wallet, but also in relation to the current infrastructure that was presented with the first version of the e-IDAS. So in this ID matching sandbox, we can press the current option Norway, and we can click and choose between which one of the pathways or flows that we want to embark on. For the simplicity of the demonstration, I will go through the IDAS 1 solution, where we are now directed to a fictional bank that has been developed in accordance of the project. So in this scenario, I am a Swedish person, and I want to log into a Norwegian bank to access my banking details to see what I have, but I don't have a Norwegian bank ID anymore or a Norwegian EID, and I want to use my Swedish EID solution. So I go to the login option in the top, and here I see a selection of options with ID-porten as the Norwegian options of EID schemes, and the foreign options for the IDAS 1 or IDAS 2. And I press the IDAS 1 option. I choose which country I'm from. I'm from Sweden in this instance, as mentioned. I go forward. I'm directed from the Norwegian bank via the IDAS network to Sweden. And here I'm allowed to choose between a variation of Swedish EIDs. We are, for this instance, using the test EID solution, which is the reference IDP. Go forward, and here I'm allowed to select between a certain amount of different EIDs to certain persons. I choose Ronald Borg for this case. I authenticate, and now I'm presented with the option of whether or not to consent the sharing of my data from Sweden back to Norway again. I consent. I'm redirected back to Norway, and now I am in the inside of the ID matching service that we have developed in NOBIT. Here you can see what attribute that we have allowed to be shared from Sweden back to Norway and the ID matching service. You will see the Swedish home identifier. You will see my first name, my last name, and my date of birth. And in here, we are allowed to perform a search within the Norwegian test population registry to see if we can find a match. So press search, and here we can see what attributes that are stored on myself in Norway in the population registry, and we can see that there is indeed a match between the attributes that I've shared and the attributes that are recorded. So we have the Norwegian identifier and we have the Swedish identifier that is recorded. And this is enough to conclude that this is an unequivocal match and should be enough to allow me to go into the service, which I can do here. And now you can see all the money I have and some information about myself, and et cetera, et cetera. And this could be thought of in many different use cases. It could be a Polish person wanting to log into Austria or any other country, but it is based on the fact that we compare the recorded data with the received data. And for the wallet solution, we are also allowing the user to download the match as a credential into the wallet, and it could be shown at a later stage. So yeah, this is basically the brief version of the demo. And you can try different matching outcomes on our ID matching sandbox that you scan the QR code for. We can have other matches, qualified match, potential match, etc. And use our demo wallet solution as well. If you want to learn more, we have a stand, as mentioned, and we can go through the live demo together and answer any questions that you might have. And you might also learn more and see other use cases that we are developing with the other countries in NOBID at the NOBID seminar on the 29th of January. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nis and Peter from Norway. How interesting is it to see something concrete here at SEMIC? And as mentioned, we have this stand, and hopefully a lot of you will be participating tomorrow to our main conference, where we can also mention we will have candy at our stand. Just an extra little detail from the Nordic countries. We are awkward, but we're also really open-minded, so we are happy to engage with you. Without further ado, to go ahead in the program, we have now our presenter, Kirsi Mikkonen from Finland, who will be presenting the OOTS 2.0. Thank you.
Yes, someone once told me that you should never present a work that is still a work in progress and not finished, and you should never use weird acronyms that nobody understands. And here we are. So bear with me. My name is Kirsi Mikkonen, and I'm a chief specialist and a project manager in KEHA Center, which is a development and administrative services center in Finland under the Ministry of Economics and Employment. And I'm actually wearing two hats because one of my main responsibilities is implementing single digital gateway regulation and once only technical system in Finland. But as said, I'm also the project manager of OOTS 2.0 project, which is a Nordic-Baltic initiative to make cross-border services more user-friendly and possibly even smarter. So let's see how this works. To understand OOTS 2.0, I'm afraid I have to go into the basics first, because the single digital gateway regulation is a regulation that helps businesses and citizens to handle their cross-border procedures digitally, securely, and more efficiently than before. And once only technical system, or OOTS, as we so endearingly call it, is the backbone of this regulation. Once only technical system allows the evidences or the proofs or the documents needed in cross-border procedures to be exchanged with the competent authorities handling those procedures. So the user who is, for example, moving to another state or starting a business in another member state can have their documents transferred via one's own technical system from the original register of the competent authorities to the procedure portal to the competent authority they are dealing with. So one's only technical system is currently being built and rolled out across EU. And here you can see how the one's only technical system user journey for cross-border procedures works today. A user searches for their procedure in member state A, authenticates to the procedure portal using their e-IDAS, and then they will probably see a button, do you want to use one's only technical system for this procedure? And oh yes, I do. But they probably will have to authenticate themselves again because most of the countries are now building intermediary platforms, so they are building their national one's only technical solutions as an intermediary platform. The user goes there, identifies themselves again, and then decides to fetch the evidence needed from member state B. In order to fetch that evidence, they need to preview and confirm the evidence, and then for that, they authenticate themselves again. They check the evidence, and then they send it back to the procedure portal and finalize the procedure. So, of course, this is improvement. It's better than uploading, downloading, or sending emails for your procedures, or sending smoke signals, or whatever we used to do. This is perfect. This is progress. But because we are the Nordic and Baltic countries, we thought, oh, there is room for improvement. So here comes one's only technical system 2.0 project. This is a Nordic-Baltic cooperation led by Finland. We started in 2024, and we plan to continue until late 26. And we have an expert group meeting each other via Teams bi-weekly with Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Denmark, and even Norway. Yes, indeed. And we discuss our visions, our problems, we share our knowledge, we talk about everything possible related to one's only technical system. And at the moment, Finland and Estonia are the most active with building our proof of concept. So our vision from the start was to make the user journey in one's only technical system slightly easier, a bit smoother, and make the data exchange as a whole just a bit smarter. Our goals were really clear. So, improve the user experience, and by the way, the user experience includes the end users and the civil servants as well. So, we want to explore smarter data exchange, use structured data efficiently, address any legal and technical challenges that might be related to our vision, and then test this via proof of concept. Sounds simple. The main outputs that we have already done is a service design report, legal and technical studies, and we are currently building our proof of concept. The service design report was made after a 2-day kickoff meeting where we, with the expert group, shared our visions. We draw a lot of things. We discussed how we would like this to work. And from those discussions and drawings and even, I could say, presentations, some even danced, we draw a service design report and some prototypes. And based on those, we then started to investigate if what we wanted would be legal, would it be technically possible. And in our legal study, we found out that it's good to go. We only have that one problem because the preview on the provider side is stated in the Implementing Act, and without changing that, we can't get rid of the one step to the register side. Technically, everything is possible. It's just a question of time and money. So we need to test. We have a real-world use case proof of concept. That use case is actually in production in Finland with one solely technical system right now. But with the proof of concept, we are then testing our vision on how to make this whole process a bit smoother. So our test case is retrieving proof of enrollment. The example case would be if I would be admitted to a university in Estonia. I would go to our social security institutions page, log in and say I want to fetch the proof of enrollment via one's only technical system. And that would be used to get me some support for my studies. So that's a student aid procedure. This is a relatively simple case. We know how it works now, so it is easier to test how we could improve it, how we could make it easier. And we will also examine how this data we exchange could be then used more efficiently in the procedure portal, for example, filling in the application form for the study benefits so that the civil servant getting the data wouldn't have to handle it differently than they do with our national users. And we are planning to see how the end user could also have a clear visibility to the data they have exchanged via one solely technical system, so they know that I have fetched this information from that register and let it go to this and this procedure portal with this government official. The proof of concept is still very much a work in progress. We started this year in May, and we've been concentrating on building the mock procedure portal, so we could also test how the procedure portal and one's only technical system could be intertwined more efficiently. For example, we started with testing an iframe solution so that the national one's only technical system could be implemented into the procedure portal. But then we found out that an API gateway solution would be probably more practical, a bit more robust and secure. So that's where the proof of concept is right now, and we plan to continue with further examinations. And we hope that this way we will be able to, in our small way, to build a bit more fluent and more connected digital Europe and Nordic-Baltic region at least. So thank you. If you wish to have more information, please go to the sdgfinland.fi and please come to talk to us to the stand. We will be here today and tomorrow all day. And I will be very happy to talk about OOTS project and, of course, single digital gateway and one's only technical system as a whole. So thank you.
We can, all of us.
Yes, thank you to the speakers, and we want to invite again the speakers from the first segment and the second segment here on stage for the panel. Please find a seat. We have a couple of questions that we hope steers a good conversation. We'll invite the audience also to participate as we set the stage for the conversation. I'm missing my speaker from Italy, Claudia. I'll send her a message. All right, let me do a reflection. First of all, yeah, this is me, Dawood, leading this panel. And I have a reflection, and the reflection is that NOBREG, the way I have seen it, it works and is organized, is really much complementary to this idea of transplanting of digitalization, because it gives us a look into the future. What would happen if the entire countries of the Union would work in the same way that NOBREG is leading their digitalization? And so I'm very pleased that these two segments of the workshop are happening at the same time, really. Yes?
Thank you. Nice to see you all here at the stage. As some of you might notice, we also have two new speakers who haven't introduced themselves here before. And I would like to just give a quick opportunity for Antti and Laima to introduce yourselves. Antti, would you like to start by introducing yourself very shortly? Do we have a microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Antti Helin from the Ministry of Finance of Finland. I'm the Finnish representative on NOBREG, and my main job at the Ministry of Finance is looking at and handling all matters related to EU legislation that's relevant for public sector digitalization, which is quite a lot of EU files at the present and in the future. Very pleased to be here to talk about these questions with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Laima Matniece. I'm from Smart Administration Regional Development Ministry of Latvia. I'm from the data governance unit, so I'm like a policy maker for these legal acts like a data act, the Data Governance Act, and so yeah, thank you.
So just to give a quick frame for this discussion, we have imagined this to be a loose discussion where you're allowed to break in, but to give just the opportunity, we'll just ask some questions, and if you would like to come with an answer, you can raise your hand. But just to provide a opportunity to for our new colleagues to start the discussions, I would like to ask Laima the first question. So essentially, when working in cross-border cooperation from the start, what are the practical benefits and what becomes possible in a project, and what are the certain aspects that each participant has to adjust or align to consume the same project result?
Adam mentioned it, like in his presentation, what the NOBREG working group been doing for the past few years. I wanted just to point it out from Latvia's perspective, the benefits to be in this Nordic-Baltic region working group. So I would like to point out the three things. The first, there's an exchange. Because across the Nordic-Baltic region, we face similar challenges when we are implementing the new EU digital and data regulations, and by sharing our experiences early, like what works, what doesn't, what we would do differently, we are all move forward faster. The second benefit to be in this working group is alignment. This is one of the most, I think, important advantages because if each country interprets EU digital and data regulations differently, then cross-border services and shared data solutions simply won't work. So through this regional cooperation, like NOBREG, we work towards a common understanding of these new frameworks. That coherence makes it possible to build solutions that work across the whole region. And the third benefit to be in this working group is there's a capacity building, because our institutions grow stronger when they work alongside the partners who have long experience in digital governance. But there's always but thinks that this cooperation can't work properly without aligning several key aspects. What are like political will, strategic direction, and national legislation, technical readiness, and of course, like we heard previously, the trust and shared values. So when these elements come together, this original cooperation makes like possible things that will be very difficult if each country worked alone. So for Latvia, this means like better solutions, faster progress, and the confidence that we are building systems fully compatible with our neighbors, because we are like building them together from the very, very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, so from the start and from the presentation we have seen, we have touched on compatibility. So countries that work together, they have to be compatible in order to aspire from the same result, the same implementations. And this compatibility can go in a wide range, can be cultural compatibility, but also touch on some more specific aspect that is, yeah, the political will is the same or compatible among the participants, that there is budgetary commitment that is so equally compatible. Obviously, the legal framework, there has to be compatibility there, compatibility on the strategic outlook and the readiness, technologically speaking. Now, I would like to ask everybody on stage, if you have, from your experience, examples of what the national administrations participating into a collaboration had to align among each other in order to converge to homogeneous implementations. You can pass on the microphone. You have two, one on that end and one on this end. Yes, please, Rannar.
Oh, of course. From Estonia's side, we see that the homogeneous understanding of data, the simple standardization of what is a car, as was previously stated, of what is a personal registry item, seeing that it is legally bounded in terms of our understanding of who, how, and why has access to our data. That has helped us create these, at least on a governmental level, these interoperable systems. And today we see that with collaborations with Finland and other EU countries as well, it enables us to broaden our horizons. So it is a certain standardization of a national level, but at the same time that it takes into account the EU standards as well.
Thank you. Any more example of what maybe has been the most challenging factor in alignment? What have you found that has been the most difficult to align?
Thank you. I think, like, especially from my perspective, because I have to do with legal affairs, it's that you might think that Nordic countries, especially because they have a shared history, that they would have a very, like they would have very similar legal regimes and very similar constitutional principles, for instance. But often not often, but sometimes what you run into is that the different countries have evolved into slightly different directions when it comes to legal systems, which means that some solutions that might be replicable in some Nordic or Baltic countries, then you go to Finland, it's like, oh, actually we can't do this because we have this one thing in our constitution and we can't do it the same way everyone else is doing. And that, of course, like as a matter of interoperability, like you can't really start changing constitutions for the sake of interoperability. So it's something that you're going to have to work around and figure out a way to make things work despite these limitations and restrictions.
All right, so we go to another question. Still talking about these factors, political will, budgetary commitment, legal framework, strategic outlook, and technology readiness. What adoption and in which of these factors are changes most required for the benefit to work in cross-border operations? So where would you focus the effort first if you had to choose one, please? This should be on already. You can start talking.
Yes, so what I have heard from many experts is that sometimes transborder interoperability is a little bit difficult to justify as comparing to the interoperability on a national level. Simply because with the transborder interoperability, we are creating a vision of the future. While as the requests, for example, for a citizen for a certain service on the national level is just simply much more than the requests which are happening on this transborder level. So I would actually think a lot about the trust and the vision aspect of it, because also what I have heard from the experts was a lot about this, that this transborder interoperability is a big shift for the Europe to be like truly unified, truly felt as one, without really using this like cultural identity, which like single member states are afraid of. So I guess this should be like where the efforts should be put first to help us create the trust.
Thank you. When talking about cross-border procedures and their compatibility, I think the most important change is the mindset. I mean, everything else can be arranged, but you have to have that will to do really actually functional cross-border services. And also to understand that when you do those cross-border services that serve cross-border movement, you are actually helping your own national procedures as well, because on the whole, they will be easier to use for your own nationals as well. So when you have that will, when you have that understanding, the rest is just work.
Thank you very much. Before we head to the audience for questions, is there anyone else who would like to comment on what?
I think it's also important that doing projects like cross-border that we are doing within the Nordic, it's not obvious that we should do with all the different countries, because it's more demanding, and it's taking longer time, but the result we get out of it at the end is so much better than going by ourselves. I think that's an important part of this.
Excellent.
Yes, and I think that one problem is that as you said, it's a matter of trust, and also it's economically sometimes easier to make the silo solution, not the cross-border solution. And I think that in some domains it's easier to find people that are like-minded cross-border when you are in certain domain, because the other experts in other country understand you better than the other people in other domains in your own country. So that, for example, healthcare is universal in that sense that it seems that there are clear benefits, even though it's as a domain it's a very difficult one. But it seems that it's easier, for example, that e-prescription, as you said, because it's something that experts are quite unanimous, so that they think that what is the important thing, and then they can decide what are the basic data that they need to exchange. But it's not so self-evident, because first you have to do that in your own country and then expand that to other countries.
Anyone else want to? Yeah.
Yes, and of course you know a lot more about transborder interoperability than we do, because mostly Ukraine are working within sort of internal digitalization. But what we find out is sometimes it's quite hard to sell interoperability as a thing of itself, because it's not public facing, correct? Your citizens don't really understand what it is and what to do and why you're actually doing it. If you come from value background, if you say, listen, we're developing this service and this service requires this interoperability, this and this and this, and this service is not sort of just marginally better than what we did before. It's like transformationally better. It's like way ahead better. In this case, politically, it's much easier for, at least for us, to actually argue that investment and political will and what you named is actually worth doing, because the citizens receive sort of very concrete and very sort of practical value. When we start working with Diia, we start with electronic documents, which from technical standpoint is possibly the simplest interoperability that you could do, right? It's just showing person what's set registers has information on him or her. It's very simple, but from sort of use case scenario, each person in Ukraine uses these documents at least sort of once a week or maybe once several weeks. So it's not public service that you use one time in a year or maybe several months at maximum. So it's you're constantly using, you constantly see value in this, and you could use this value as a way to basically argue for additional investment, for additional public attention or political will or whatever. So I think we should be smart about it, and we should not speak about, at least publicly, about interoperability. We said we should speak about what's value it's bringing, and then interoperability will be sort of a means to the end, I would say. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I see a lot of you nodding, but I think we're at the moment for questions.
Yes, if we can invite people in the audience who would be curious to ask questions to the panel and take the opportunity.
Also, just to highlight, there's also opportunity to ask in some of the presentations that our panelists have showed before. So feel free to pitch in.
Someone who wants to break the ice with a question?
Do we?
Yes, yes.
Over there.
Can I please have one of the microphones? Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Tahir from Netherlands. And thank you so much for all the presentations. I've one question is mostly around Estonia, I think, and Italian presenters. That was about the potentially confliction between the interoperability and IPP protection when you were talking about transparency and effectiveness of digital governance. And a way for that was avoiding from vendor lock-in. When you have private vendors who develop the technologies to reach to this interoperability, mostly talking about semantic level, then they have some exclusive rights. And these exclusive rights to some extent give kind of lock-in, and that can, in some cases, be a face of, against the interoperability, because they don't share. When you don't share, like APIs or interfaces, then you don't have interoperability as such. I just want to know how you manage that if you had such a case.
Thank you. From the Estonian side, yes, it's important to note that about 97% of the 2,600 services that are available to the public have been built by the private sector. So only the most integral databases and registries are built completely in-house. Now, how we've managed to avoid vendor lock-in is that we, from the beginning of the process of digitalization, made it so that everything has to be plug and play in a way, that everything has to be modular, so that even if company A builds the service in 2007, if company B wins the procurement in 2014, the systems have to be interoperable with each other. So every single service doesn't independent of who has built them. The agreement between the public and the private sector is that they are not the company who also maintains the system, but rather they train the government officials kind of responsible for whatever system that they built. So the private entity is responsible for the building and the training, but not the maintaining of the service. So that has made it available for us to avoid vendor lock-in. Now, at the same time, we do have to be honest that it is nowhere as near as effective as the Ukrainian system, where the procurement process has been made much clearer. It still takes years in many cases to build some services, and of course, much of that is public pushback as well. But comments from our other speakers as well.
Ukraine,
yes.
You like to comment on?
Yeah, just very shortly. Vendor locking as an issue is an issue, I think, for everybody. In Ukraine, what we did with Diia, we have several, possibly a dozen plus companies that working on Diia and developing public services. Our core idea is to basically maintain ownership on all products that being developed, from code base to the sort of process base to whatever, right? So when we contract the company, the end state is not the solution itself. End state is some functionalities that being transferred to the government, and we have in-house technical team, what we call vendor teams, that actually sort of review code and understand how it's working. We have standards for documentation, and if something need to be changed later on, or some additional vendors need to be brought on board, it could be easily done, because in the end, all ownership on every line of code, every line of documentation, and every sort of concept of whatever is being with the government. This is not perfect, because it means that you need to have on board in-house your team all basic competency about system development and maintaining. So developers, technical product managers, whatever, business analysis and so on. So it's very costly, of course, but in this way, at least you don't have risks, or you mitigated some of the risks of basically involving private sector to do a development for you. At least this is what works for us. Thank you.
Very quickly and very briefly, also from the intellectual property side, so Estonia went the other way in some sense, that the companies keep some of the intellectual property so that they can export it. So in the same way that Ukraine is working with Zanzibar and with North Macedonia, we see that Estonia, on a public-private partnership level, is working both on a governmental and an entrepreneurial level with Southeast Asian governments, with African governments, and governments in Latin America, to help them jump into the digitalization process as well. It doesn't have to start from zero if we can help you. But that requires a lot of communication between government and private sector, which is difficult to achieve in many cases.
We have a comment over here.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some kind of interesting approach from the cities, because, for example, the cities, they sometimes come together to negotiate together. Even, you know, you are from one part of the continent and then you have a partner from another part of the continent, but it gives you much more power to negotiate with a potential service provider and to kind of, you know, avoid the traps.
All right. Before we head to the final question, I would like to hear if there's any other questions from the audience. I think we have one over here. And then that's
Hello everyone, I'm Goran Paštrić from Serbia. I was really inspired by all your presentations. What I found genuine is that you tackled in different cases the economy of scale, the collaboration, coordination, also technical and technological solutions. What actually made my attention further and deeper was in particular INVEST project, where you actually had this playbook insisting on this transversal government, and I'm wondering, maybe the question is for all the speakers, have you been thinking about overarching framework that could bring in continuous improvement? As I could notice the trust and re-questioning the trust, we heard the colleague from Estonia that the people are not anymore criticizing because they are fully trusting. On the other side, there is a fear. Do you consider quality management perhaps as an overarching framework that could be a glue for any of those facts and aspects that you were presenting today, based on your inspiring cases? Thank you.
We have a microphone here. Someone wants to comment about trust and overarching framework?
Just a quick comment on Estonians. We've never been unhappier, so no, don't consider us too complacent or happy. But building an overarching framework, of course, but that takes political will on pan-national scale, and we see that with projects such as the ones that have been presented here today. They're doing incredible jobs, and of course the new Nordics kind of approach as well is incredible, looking at academic and entrepreneurial collaboration. But at the same time, even working with the Baltic states, we see that there's different levels of readiness. And from the governmental side especially, we see that many times countries' political alliances are sometimes skin deep, and they require deeper collaboration, which is hard often to achieve with 4-year term limits. But I'll leave the comment to other speakers.
Rita, yes.
Yes, one thing, once I was in a conference and one speaker said that integration and interoperability are not the same thing. So, that sounds interesting. But then I thought, okay, perhaps it's like the integration, if you have a separate islands, and integration is that you build bridges between them so that you can deal with the nearest neighbors and some kind of that kind of thing. But the interoperability is like setting a framework of harbors, so that, for example, you have a container harbor, and then you can deal with anyone, any port that can deal with containers, so that you don't have to build bridges that are strict constructs, but you can have open mindset. So I think that is something we should say, that it's the different mindset of thinking things. And regarding trust, then it also that you have to think that this is an investment. And I think the one problem is that we currently think too much about the costs and immediately what we have to pay, and don't see the benefits. Because, for example, in Finland we have a project where we decided do things together, and then because we have a common code set, we didn't have to make mappings between different systems. So that it's sometimes that the most efficient thing is to save costs altogether, so that we don't have the costs from the start, but because we did things together, we saved money. And that is sometimes difficult to prove, but that is something that we should do.
Just, we almost don't have much time, but if you have a quick answer or comment, feel free.
I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that trust is essential, and it's in a Nordic-Baltic cooperation. We don't have any formal agreement between us. We are sitting down, working together, and trusting that each other have the same ambition, and doing it for the best of the common opportunity.
I think we have to move on, unfortunately, to the last question. If some of you would like to answer quickly, very short answer. What are the recommendations we could highlight for member states or member countries that want to leverage other digitalization acceleration and inspired for these Nobareg model? And I think also Antti is a how would you say, the perfect person to answer, but I also like to open up if anyone else. But
Thank you for putting me on the spot. Basically, from my experience, what's important is when you approach this kind of cooperation, you don't approach it with the idea that we're going to go in there and we're going to like suck up all the benefits from it and not give anything back. It's a give and take. You give some, you get some. And sometimes it might be that there's going to be a period where you're the one who is blazing the trail and doing most of the accelerating, and then you're going to just pull everyone else in your wake. But then there's going to be another time when you're maybe lagging a bit behind, and then you can get inspiration from the other members. So I think a very long-term view in this sense that if you're not seeing immediate benefits from the cooperation, doesn't mean that the cooperation isn't working. It's just going to require a bit more patience and a bit more effort.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will have to conclude this session with first by saying thank you very much to all of you, both from also outside the Union and East to Ukraine and the other Nordic countries. Before we all get lunch, and I know that you're all very hungry, I would like to just give a short service message in the sense that there was a glitch in terms of the registration where we expected a lot. We see that there's a lot more people here today, and we are very happy to see the interest in SEMIC, but we ask for your understanding in terms of the service levels might not be as usual, and for this we would like to apologize, and at the same time we'd also like to thank and say we're very grateful for our forum to accommodating these circumstances, and it's been amazing that you have helped us here today, and again, apologies, thank you very much. And I would like to say enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.